Quantum leaders, the pragmatist, the preconscious flow of reality. The pragmatist's natural style, practical, methodical, and results-oriented, typically favors what can be measured, tracked, and proven. Yet, through the quantum lens of the preconscious, their work reveals an unseen layer. Even their most efficient actions are influenced by subtle, intuitive impressions that arise before conscious logic. The pragmatists may not naturally label themselves intuitive, but they consistently operate within a flow of knowing that precedes reasoning. Their greatest precision often emerges not just from discipline, but from an undefinable sense of what to fix, when to act, or what a system needs before the issue is visible. With a motivation direction of away from, the pragmatist seeks to avoid errors and prevent failure. But the first signal of a breakdown is often not technical. It's energetic. A room feels off. A meeting is efficient, but leaves a strange residue. A tool works, but something quietly resists. These are preconscious cues. When the pragmatist learns to trust these subtle internal nudges, they begin solving problems before they fully form, becoming not just a troubleshooter, but a subtle system tuner. Their attention focus on self makes them inwardly consistent, but the preconscious speaks quietly and in ways the analytical mind may ignore. For the pragmatist, it often appears as a small hesitation before acting, a mental ping to double-check something, or a sudden image that seems unrelated. These are not inefficiencies, they are data from the field. When honored, they often reveal micro-corrections that save hours of downstream damage. With an internal frame of reference, they typically act from established logic. But logic is downstream from awareness. The preconscious flow gives the pragmatist access to clarity before the mind catches up. By intentionally cultivating a few moments of stillness, before launching into task, they allow space for impressions, felt senses, or internal leanings to rise. This doesn't make them less logical, it makes them faster than logic. Their procedural operational style is based on reliable steps. Yet, it's often during procedural execution that their preconscious intelligence tries to whisper. A step feels wrong, even if it matches the manual. A deviation arises that they know they should follow, but the plan says otherwise. The pragmatist evolves when they hold space within structure, building processes that allow intuitive deviation without chaos. The specific viewpoint gives them mastery over fine detail. But the preconscious often operates through the periphery. It's what they sense in the pause between steps, the energy behind a request, or a tone in someone's voice that doesn't match their words. By softening their detail focus just enough to include the energetic edges, the pragmatist becomes hyper-responsive, not only to what's asked, but to what's really needed. Their solo work preference gives them time to hear themselves. In solitude, their preconscious mind has room to speak. A sudden idea may surface while walking. A hunch about system vulnerability may arrive before sleep. These are not random. They are system-wide signals arriving through a tuned nervous system. The pragmatist, when rested and receptive, becomes a quiet receiver of future conditions. With dissociated emotional engagement, they often filter emotion out of work. But the preconscious speaks through emotion. Not dramatic feeling, but subtle shifts. Unease, quiet calm, gentle tension. These are not problems to push past, they are breadcrumbs. By honoring low-volume emotional signals, the pragmatist learns to course-correct with almost uncanny timing. As a matcher, they favor what's proven. But the preconscious doesn't care about precedent. It cares about emergence. Something new often arrives as a feeling before it's ready to be proven. The pragmatist's maturity lies in recognizing, just because something hasn't worked before, doesn't mean it won't work now. Their task is to let subtle resonance guide experimentation, even while maintaining operational logic. Their through-time orientation grants linear structure. But the preconscious often flows non-linearly. An idea may arise early that doesn't seem to fit. A concern may emerge too soon. The wise pragmatist begins to map time as not only structured, but alive. They allow timing to speak rather than just be tracked. In this mode, deadlines flex just enough to let insight breathe. And with a primary drive of things, the pragmatist loves tangible outcomes. Yet now, those outcomes carry an invisible origin. An instinct, a pause, a moment of alignment before action. The most efficient workflows, tools, and systems often trace back to a single moment of felt knowing. The pragmatist who learns to listen before they act stops merely responding to problems. They begin sensing future friction and solving it before it happens. Their work becomes not just practical, but quietly prophetic. They move from fixing the machine to feeling the current. In that space, they become not only efficient, but essential. Quantum leaders, the pragmatist. You are the tipping point. The pragmatist's natural style, measured, consistent, focused on real-world execution, often positions them behind the scenes of big change. Yet under this final quantum principle, everything shifts. They are the tipping point. In a world overwhelmed by ideas and possibilities, it is the pragmatist's action that moves intention into form. Not because they shout the loudest, but because they show up reliably, act decisively, and complete what others only theorize. When the pragmatist commits fully to a shift, no matter how small, they change the trajectory of the system. With a motivation direction of away from, the pragmatist often acts to prevent failure. But this drive becomes a hidden superpower when consciously directed. Every time they intervene early, fix quietly, or restructure a process before collapse, they become the hinge point for stability. The tipping point isn't always a dramatic move. It's often one unnoticed correction that prevents systemic failure. Their quiet, grounded presence can tip a chaotic environment into cohesion. Their attention focus on self gives them autonomy and control over their contribution. But here, the principle reveals that self-regulation is system leadership. When the pragmatist maintains calm focus while others panic, when they act steadily in the face of uncertainty, they anchor the entire group. Their internal balance becomes the system's balancing point. Others begin to calibrate around their consistency. With an internal frame of reference, they are less influenced by noise and more committed to efficiency. This becomes catalytic in moments of drift, indecision, or disorientation. When the pragmatist acts from inner clarity, especially when others hesitate, they flip the switch. They bring coherence simply by taking the next step while others are still debating. Their decision becomes the domino that starts the shift. Their procedural operational style means they are often the one following through when others burn out. But tipping points don't require reinvention. They require completion. A system only changes when it moves from intent to delivery. The pragmatist's follow-through is the tipping point between theory and transformation. The thing works because they finished it. Their specific viewpoint makes them masterful with fine detail. And in quantum systems, the tipping point is rarely grand. It's often one adjustment in the right place, a form rewritten more clearly, a sequence reordered, a handoff optimized. The pragmatist doesn't need to overhaul the system. They just need to make the right small change at the right time with full alignment. That's where scale begins. With a solo work preference, they often lead from behind. But the tipping point doesn't require a stage. It requires impact. In the background, the pragmatist often makes the one change that unblocks the project. They stabilize the platform others stand on. The moment they step into full ownership of their unseen influence, they realize their precision is not just valuable, it's pivotal. Their dissociated emotional engagement allows them to act without emotional volatility. This becomes critical during tipping moments. When others are reactive, emotional, or frozen, the pragmatist can act from clarity. Their neutrality becomes a stabilizer. In these moments, the one who feels least entangled becomes the one who moves the system forward. As a matcher, they bring what has worked before into the present. But the tipping point often comes not from reinvention, but from reapplication. The pragmatist sees, this worked in another place. Let's apply it here, now. Their ability to recognize and replicate functionality creates momentum. Their action builds continuity in chaos. Their through-time orientation lets them sequence events. But tipping points happen in time, not just across it. There is a moment when a process must start, when a correction must be made, when a button must be pressed. The pragmatist senses when the time has come, not emotionally, but procedurally. Their action becomes a pivot point in the timeline, and their primary drive, things, positions them to bring the intangible into the tangible. Visionaries imagine, reformers inspire, But it's the pragmatist who materializes. The moment they decide to act, to build, to fix, to deliver, they tip the system from theory to embodiment. The tipping point is not dramatic. It's a quiet, grounded, yes, now. And when the pragmatist realizes that their movement initiates momentum, they no longer wait to be told. They become the inflection point, where delay ends, clarity begins, and the world quietly, steadily changes.